Alright guys, here is our tutorial for our German twisted cast on and our socks. I'm going to show you a few times. I know we already did it in class, but I'm going to show you a couple of times how to do the twisted German cast on just as a refresher so you have it. You want your long tail over your thumb, and you want your working yarn that's attached to your ball over your pointer finger, and you're going to kind of hold them like this, and then you go underneath both threads, in between the middle, around, and then back through. So you're going to go underneath both, through. I'll do it a couple more times. And this is a cast on that takes a while to get used to, and if you're struggling, don't worry, it will be all right. Okay, so I've cast on 54 stitches because I'm making the small size sock according to our vanilla sock pattern that we're using in class. And I am going to take half of my stitches that I put on, and I'm slipping them purlwise onto my other needle. So I'm going to just slip 28 of them from the needle in my left hand to the needle in my right hand. And once I have done that, I will be ready to join them for working in the round. Okay, so I have both of my stitches, both my needles have 28 stitches on them. You're going to make sure that when you go to join in the round, all of your bumps from your cast on are pointing down on both of the needles, because if they aren't in a straight line, the odds are that you are going to twist them when you start knitting, and then it won't be useful to you. So all of mine are pointing down, so I'm going to get ready to start knitting these stitches. So I have my yarn on my back needle, and my front needle is the end that I started casting on with. So there's nothing going on over here. And I'm going to start, we're going to do a knit one, purl one rib for 1.5 inches. And what I'm going to do is I am going to take the tail, make sure it's your yarn from your ball and not your tail. And I am going to pull it up from my back needle, and I'm going to start knitting. And it's a little awkward at first, but you're going to just start knitting. That's a knit. And this is first stitch where you're joining. You want to pull it way tighter than you think you should have to, because if you don't, you're going to get weird gaps in the side of your knitting, and nobody likes that. So you're going to knit the first stitch and then purl. And then we're working in a knit one, purl one. So I knit, oh no, I lost one. I'm going to knit it. And I'm going to come in front between my needles so that I can purl. And this is what you're going to do the entire way around. So this guy's a purl, and then I go here and we're going to knit, and then we're going to purl, and I'm going to do that to the end of the row. Okay, so I've gotten to the end of my first needle. This is the front needle, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my work so that my working yarn, oops, sorry guys, my working yarn is back here on the back needle like how we started. Some of my bumps got a little bit twisted while I was working. That's not a problem. Just make sure all your stitches are going the correct way. And I'm going to move these stitches to the end of this needle so that I can work them easier. And you have an even number of stitches on your needles, so you're going to be starting with a knit on this side and ending with a purl. And then when you come around to this side, you start with a knit and you end with a purl. And if it's not happening that way, send me a text message or call me, because I can help you. And so the same thing, I'm starting a new row. It's a little awkward right here, so when I do my very first knit stitch, I knit it and I pull this nice and tight because we don't want to have any gaps in our sock. And so I'm just going to knit and purl all the way across. And so the same thing happens. I'm going to get to the end of this row. I'm going to just rearrange my stitches so that the row I finished is at the back and the one I need to work is at the front. This is my front, this is my back. See how that works? So that you can work off the front needle. And you just keep knitting and purling. Knit one, purl one for 1.5 inches. All right. Okay, I just got to the end of my first round and I wanted to show you guys. This happened to me and I think it happened to other people in the class. This is okay on your first round. We're just getting things established. But once we start on our next round, we really want to make sure that when we do that very first knit stitch on this needle, that we get it in there and we pull it really super tight so that it doesn't have that. Because if you're going to have a little bit of a gap when you're working with circular needles like this, when you're working with double points, but you don't want to have such a big gap that you it won't go away after you wash it. Like if it's a little bit of a gap, it'll kind of even itself out over time. You'll wash them, it'll work itself into the other stitches around it. But if you don't get this guy like nice and tight coming around here, see, I just split my yarn because I'm talking, can't see what I'm doing. But the point is that if you don't get this nice and tight on this round and the rounds after it, it's going to look funny. It's not going to stay right. It's going to be silly. So I pull it super tight so that it's touching this needle behind it. And I also do the next couple of stitches a little bit tighter, just so that it can, it's going to help you not ladder. That's what it's called when you have big gaps in between your stitches. They're called ladders. And that's not something that you really want to have while you're doing your socks.